Hello, everyone. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Vanita Lambert, and I have a very special guest with me today. Her name is Ellen Morgan. She is an attorney. Among other things, she's also my NCNW sister, and I'm so glad that she's here today. We're going to be talking about a host of things. Ellen, thank you, and welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm fine. How are you?
Good. I've been trying to get you on the show for a while now.
Yes, you have.
And here, I finally did it. I am victorious. You are here. She is an encyclopedia of knowledge in so many different fields. We just have one of her titles here, attorney, but she wears many, many hats. And today, before we even get into our show, I always have to mention a little something about COVID because we live in a COVID world.
Absolutely.
And so I'm an avid news watcher. I probably watch too much news, as everybody knows, but that's where I get my information from. Mm-hmm. And I don't just watch one news station, I watch them all. I watch CNN, I watch Fox, and I watch MSNBC, and I watch ABC so that I can get all the information and not just one person's opinion or one news. But regarding COVID, I know that we have 56.2% people fully vaccinated in this country, and at least 88% have one dose. So what that means to me is that by the end of October, we should have, if everybody get their second dose, 88% of eligible adults and children in this country vaccinated, and that's a really good thing. And all the numbers are going down. Hospitalizations,
that's a wonderful
people
thing.
Dying, and one death is too many. So I just want to shout out to everybody for doing your job to crush COVID. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Because without people getting vaccinated, for those who can get vaccinated. Mm-hmm. Things will not go back to the way they used to be. And it's really, really important to protect those who can't get vaccinated.
Like the children.
Like the children.
Exactly. So I have Ellen on this show today. We're going to talk about voting and local voting, something I grew up not knowing anything about. I'll be honest. I grew up, on the east side of Bridgeport, single family. There was like 7 kids and my mom, and our priorities were food, clothes, the necessities. And I was not brought up in a political household where we focused on voting. We always thought, even up until recently, the presidential vote was just the biggest thing ever. But it's not.
No, it's not. It's not. And so I'm here. Vanita and I are also NCNW sisters, National Council of Negro Women. And she's been a phenomenal force within our section. I got to tell you, this woman is wonderful.
Thank you.
And one of our, I guess you would say, one of our priorities within the National Council of Negro Women is voter participation. And our organization is a national organization. Actually, it's international.
Oh.
We have chapters in Europe. We have a chapter, I believe, we have a new chapter in Ghana. And we have chapters in the Caribbean. So we are an international organization. And we all have local sections. In the state of Connecticut, we currently have 5 sections. Bridgeport, which covers Fairfield County. New Haven, which covers New Haven County. Hartford, which covers Hartford County.
Yep.
New London, which covers New London County. And a collegiate chapter, Yukon at Stores. And we are in the process of getting our second collegiate chapter. We are working on it.
Really? I didn't know that. This is news to me.
This is news. I spoke. We are in the process of starting a chapter at Housatonic Community College.
Oh, nice.
So one of the national cohorts is voter participation, civic participation. And why we think that is so important is because the things that you were just talking about, having a roof over your head, having enough food to eat, making sure your bills are paid, all of that is still connected to the political process.
Yes, it is.
So if you live in a housing project, say you lived in P.T. Barnum, or let's take it back, say you lived in Marina.
Or Father Panic
Village. Those places no longer exist because of the political process. There are a lot of other things, but the political process said, okay, let's get rid of these and these large congregate buildings and spread people out so that they have some more room. Everybody's not all on top of one another, and hopefully that will provide a better life. That decision was a political decision, not just an economic decision, not just a criminal justice decision, not just, oh, we don't have enough money to fix these buildings up. That was also a political decision. So participating in politics, whether by voting or telling your elected representatives what your thoughts are on a particular subject, it's pretty important, and it does affect everybody's day-to-day life. And so this November, we are having local elections here in the state of Connecticut. I know Bridgeport is having council elections. Stratford, where we're filming today, has a mayoral election.
Yep.
Shelton has mayoral elections. There's elections all over the place. And these are the local elections. And a lot of people are like, well, you know, it's a local election. I don't need to really participate because, you know, it's important that I, you know, cast my vote for president, or it's important I cast my vote for the senators.
Right.
Well, it is important that you cast your vote for the president and the senators in the national elections, but those folks don't necessarily control what you do here on the ground.
Exactly.
So we'll just take Stratford as an example. They have a mayoral election, and I always like to use this story. It's the pothole. You have a pothole on your street. How does that pothole get repaired? Well, you call your local government, whether it's a town council person, whether it's city hall, whatever. You call them up and you say, hey, I've got a pothole on my street and I want it repaired. Okay, so how does that pothole get repaired? Well, that municipality has to allocate money to the Public Works Department. They're the ones who have the people who will go out with the trucks and the asphalt and go and repair it. If they don't have the money, they're not going to repair your pothole. It won't be repaired in a timely fashion. They'll wait till it gets really huge, and they really have to repair it, and there's no way around it. So the people who are in charge of that budget are your local elected officials, so that's your town council, your city council people. They decide how much goes into that budget, and they decide where that money goes. So I know here in Stratford, I grew up here, there's always been this imaginary line between the south end and the north end of Stratford.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and there's always this thing that, you know, the people in the north end of Stratford always, well, this was our perception if you lived on the other side of town, was that they always got better resources than the people in the south end. And people in the north end are saying, hey, I pay more taxes than the people in the south end. I want my fair share. So your pothole is in the north end of Stratford. So your elected officials in the north end of Stratford are going to make sure that there's enough money for the people in the north end of Stratford to get their pothole repair. And the people who live in the south end of Stratford are asking their officials to do the exact same thing. So you've got this pothole, it needs to get repaired, and you've contacted your local official. Your local official will say, okay, we'll put it on the list. The ever popular, we'll put it on the list.
I've heard about that list.
Yeah, that list is notorious. I don't know where this list exists, but it's out there. So obviously, during the winter months, you're going to get more potholes than you are going to get in the summer months. And they're going to prioritize potholes that are on the main roads, like here in Stratford, would say Barnum Avenue,
Main Street
or Main
and stuff
Street,
like that.
where
Yep,
there's
Broad Street.
where there's tons of traffic. They're going to prioritize those potholes more than they're going to prioritize a dead end street someplace else in town. But you know, your elected officials are the ones who say, okay, Public Works, here's your pot of money. This is all you're getting this year, so you need to make it work. And so they're trying to figure out where they're going to get the most bang for their bucks. But that decision to give that money is made by the official that you elect on your local level.
Thus making the local vote more important. Because it affects you directly. And so it's important to know who's running. And so how do you get to know who's running? Do they do mailers?
Well, that's a political campaign. So
right.
if you are not affiliated with a political party, and in this case, Connecticut has Republicans, Democrats, working families, Green parties. There's a lot of political parties where you can get your information from. But if you want something that, I don't want to sign up with a party, you can go online and you can pull it up on your phone. You can go to the Secretary of State's office. You can go to the town that you live in, to their website, and it will list who's running for what. You go to the Registrar of Voters section on the website. It will tell you who's running, what the district is. It will tell you where you vote in that district. And it will tell you the hours of voting. And if you want to get an absentee ballot, it will tell you how to go about doing that as well.
Right. Now, see, I do understand that, but from my perspective, we didn't know to go online. We didn't know to ask. Sometimes you need to know something in order to ask the right questions. So the town that I live in now, even though I'm from Bridgeport, what happens in West Haven, and I'm still not on top of local voting as much as I should be, but what happens in West Haven is we get mailers in the mailbox for who's running, which candidate is running for Democrat and what their issues are and when to vote. So that was missing from our household. We didn't know what was going on. And we didn't know to go and look for that information unless you were taught in school and I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, we weren't, they didn't teach us a lot of stuff then. So how does a person even know that there's an election going on? And here's another incident. I was at a party. Well, it was my party, actually. And there was a candidate there, and she was speaking and everything about her town. And my cousin, who lived in the same town, did not know she was running. So that's why I'm asking these questions, because I am from that group of people that I'm just oblivious. I just don't know where to start. And if you're sitting home with all these issues, food, this, that, and the other, which is another really important reason to vote. If you're having issues getting a job or whatever, you want to vote for somebody that's going to bring more jobs to your town or hear what their issues are or just whatever. So I'm just saying, how do we know if there's not a piece of paper that say, okay, Vanita Lambert is running for mayor on, November 2nd, and she's fighting for better jobs, better health care, and, fix all the potholes. So, how do we get to that beginning, that very, very beginning?
That part of it is just you have to kind of be aware of what's going on in your town.
Okay.
But that's part of it. When you get those mailings come from political parties. So if you've gotten a mailing from, okay, let's use Stratford since we're in Stratford, and we neither one of us live in Stratford.
Just pretend like we got a mailer from Immaculate Can.
Right. So if you're a Democrat, you would get a mailing from Immaculate Can. If you're a Republican, you got a mailing from Laura Hoydick. If you're not affiliated with any party, meaning you haven't signed up to be a Republican or a Democrat, but you have signed up for voting, that means you're an independent, which means you're getting mailings from everybody.
I get mailings from everybody.
Okay, so that
I'm a registered Democrat.
You should only get mail. You should only be getting mail.
Not in my town. They try to flip you.
Oh, okay.
Not in my town. We get everything.
You get everything.
And so now I'm aware. I didn't know that I had to go vote on September 14th. Shame on me. That's,
Well, primaries are a little difficult. I mean, they're not difficult, but
you don't know.
Unless you are living in a town that has, say, a local radio or a local television station that is broadcasting to the residents of that town that you can pick up, you will miss the dates of primary. Right. So that's important for the mailings part.
So we need to raise awareness of when to vote and when these dates are coming out. That's my point that I'm really trying to get to, because I was in the dark for so long, and like in some cases I still am.
Well, a lot of people.
So how do we get these people out of the dark and make them aware?
Well, it's kind of hard but it's also easy.
We got to do it.
I know,
because we need that vote.
Everybody needs to vote.
We need that vote, so we got to do it. So what do we do?
So part of it, is you have to kind of make it a habit to pay attention to local news.
Okay.
You have to do. Everybody watches, the 6:30 news, the national news, and you find out what's going on in Florida, and you find out, about, that poor child who was killed in Arizona by her boyfriend, or they think it was by her boyfriend.
Oh, don't even bring that up. That's crazy.
So you hear those stories on a regular basis, but you really do have to pay attention to your local news, and that's reading a local newspaper.
Yep.
Watching local news online. A lot of places, if you have, like in Stratford here, you have Cablevision. So you have a pretty good local news station. They really are one of the best in terms of covering local news. So even if you're not home and you're sitting at work on a break, you flip on the Channel 12 app and you just scroll through what's going on.
Exactly. Or you can always tune into the David Goodman Show.
Or you can always change.
This
Public
is a good source for
access
community
is very
resources.
important. Public access television is very important.
And we're on YouTube, so everybody's on YouTube. So
Everybody's on YouTube.
Yeah.
So when you start seeing the signs all around the place, and you see like who's that and with that, that might be a time where you say, you know what, let me just go to the town website. And what are these people running for?
Exactly.
Planning and zoning. What the heck is planning and zoning? Planning and zoning decides where things are built in your town.
Exactly. That's important. Zoning
That's
is
very important.
That I know.
I mean, remember when they had the Mount Trashmore on the east side of Bridgeport? It was about 15, 20 years ago, I think, at this point, where there was a construction company, and they would dump their construction garbage, basically, in this one lot. And the thing grew to, over 100 feet tall. Now imagine if you're living there, what that does to your quality of life, to the health of your children. You don't know what's in that stuff.
Exactly.
And those people went and got on their state representatives and said, look, you need to enforce the zoning rules because it's illegal to do this construction dumping in this spot. And eventually the state, the town, city of Bridgeport, and the state of Connecticut shut it down. It took a while, but these people knew the zoning rules did not allow this particular activity in a residential area. Thus,
shameful.
That's why you vote for people who are going to enforce the rules on planning and zoning. That's why you enforce, dog catcher.
Exactly. Dog whistle.
Exactly.
So, I'm taking, if you don't know when to vote or why to vote or whatever, whenever you have a problem in your town, whether it's in your grocery store and you don't like something and you want to complain about it, that's when you get involved. And that's how you learn what's going on, who's running for what. That's a good way to get started.
It's a very
You don't need to get a piece of mail. If there's like the pothole, analogy that you gave.
It's very, very, it's not simple, but it's simple enough to do.
Everybody
you just have
problems.
to get into the habit of doing it. So you see those little signs around. Oh, somebody's running for something. Okay, well, you can do, it takes you less than 5 minutes. You go to that city website and you look up elections. And boom, it tells you who's running for what and in what district. Well, how do you know what district you live in? That's really confusing because they change all the time, and that's a separate issue. That's gerrymandering.
I was going to say.
But they change every 10 years according to the census.
Oh, okay.
So how do you know where you vote? What district,
where your polling is.
Right.
Exactly.
You may like this guy, and it turns out that person is in another district, and you can't even vote for them.
That's right.
So you go to the website, your town website, and you put your street in there in the voter section, and it tells you what district you're in. Just that simple. Maybe you know somebody who's running. You ask them. If you're a member of a political party, the political campaign is going to reach out to every single registered member of that political party and say, hey, you have an election coming up. This is your district. This is where you vote. Do you need a ride?
Yes, I'll take a free ride.
Hey, I've done that. I've driven people. I used to drive people to the polls, and it was fun. I remember the first time back in the old days.
Uh-oh, don't age us. Go ahead.
Political parties used to call people up, all the registered voters that they had a phone number for, and they would call them up on election day to remind them today's election day. Please go out and vote. They would have lists, and they would look and say, okay, you live on Smith Street, so you vote over in District 2. Okay. And they would tell you where to vote. And what time the polls close. So
and
please
drive
go
you
vote.
there.
And if you needed a ride, they would drive you.
That's awesome. So you gotta get involved in voting.
Absolutely. I remember.
Your voice counts.
It does.
It really
every
does.
every vote counts.
It does, especially on a local level. Yes, it does. Who did I have on this show? Philip, what's his last name? I can't think of his last name. He won his election by like 15 votes. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Every single vote counts.
Absolutely.
And if you have an issue in your town, then you want to get it resolved.
That's the person to call.
They're going to say, talk to your city council person.
Absolutely.
If you don't like something, vote for somebody else. Call them up, get them involved, because all of those politicians, they're working for your vote.
They're absolutely working for
their vote. They want to
vote.
get elected, and once they get elected, it doesn't stop there. Hold them accountable
Absolutely.
for what they
Hold them
for.
accountable. They asked for your vote. They asked for your trust. If you voted for them and you gave them your vote and your trust, so remind them, yes, I trusted you to do this certain thing.
That's right.
Or to fulfill this certain campaign promise. I'm going to hold you to that.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I remember back when we did cold calling, the polls would close at 8 o'clock.
Yep.
I called this individual. It turned out to be the young man had just turned 18. And so back in the day, high schools would register kids who were turning 18 in time for a vote. They would register you to vote back in there. And he had done that. And he had never voted. So I spoke to this man. I spent like maybe 10 minutes on the phone call. Now, if you're doing those cold calls, you're doing 30 seconds at a top, right?
Right.
So he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. I said, you've registered to vote. There are a lot of people who can't vote, but you can. So you might as well just go ahead and vote. Oh, I don't have a ride. Where do you live? It turned out he lived like 3 blocks away. I'm like, you can walk that in 15 minutes.
And he's 18.
And
he could have ran it.
Exactly. He could run it in probably 5, right? So I was like, so we talked, and it's like, this is, I'm giving him all the reasons to vote. He said, all right, I'll think about it. And I said, you promise? So I had to turn like the mommy voice on him. You promise? Okay, you promise? All right, fine. Well, at the end of the day, when the polls closed, we went in, and the political parties have the right to have people there to observe the counting of ballots. And when you're at the polls, there are people there to mark off who has voted, to make sure that people have voted properly. You come in with your license and make sure the proper people have voted, and to see who has voted that year. I mean, that's the voter list, right?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out, we go through the voter list, it turns out he had come in like 10 minutes before the polls closed and voted for the very first time.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, I would have thought it was my child. I was so happy.
He was your child, your voting child.
Yeah, it was really a lot of fun back doing it that way.
That's a great story. I wish someone had done that for me. I didn't register to vote. I think I was like in my 30s.
Really?
Oh my God, I was an old woman.
Oh my goodness, I was so excited. I was so excited to vote in my very first election, because the school. No, I had not turned 18 when they were doing the registrations, but I was very excited to go vote, because when I was a kid, when my parents voted, they always took me along, and it was just a thing that I learned how to do. Was that you go vote, and
if you're brought up that way, if you're trained that way, if you talk about it, then that's what you're going to do. I'm trying to really think how old I was. Maybe I was in my 20s, late 20s, but it wasn't 18. I didn't register. And so if you're turning 18, go ahead and get registered.
Absolutely.
Get involved. And a lot of these people are. A lot of these young kids are.
People talk about all the stuff that happened last year. Well, in order to make any reforms anywhere,
exactly, it takes voting.
It takes voting.
Oh my goodness,
absolutely takes voting.
It is so important. Just don't miss out. That's the only way that your voice is going to get heard. That's the only way.
That's the only way that people in power listen.
Exactly,
is if they see a vote, and that's why there are so many concerns about making it easy enough to vote for people.
Oh, that's a whole nother subject.
And nowadays, you can go get your license and register to vote.
In some states, it's very difficult.
In some states, it is very difficult. Connecticut is one of those states where, we've always pretty much had a voter ID thing. I remember having to show my driver's license.
Right, always.
The first time I voted. And I still do show my driver's license. And now I got the real ID because that says the federal government has proven that I am who I am.
So wait a minute, what's a real ID?
The real ID.
Oh.
The one with the little yellow stars on it.
Oh, I don't
That's
have
the
any
one,
yellow stars.
Oh, you do. You want to get one of those real IDs because
okay.
starting next year, that and a passport are going to be the only ways you're going to be able to get on a plane.
Okay, I got my passport.
Well, then you're going to be carrying around your passport. And if you're flying domestically, why do you want to carry around your passport?
Exactly.
When you already have, you're going to carry your driver's license as a form of ID to go.
Because you got to drive.
Right, because you got to drive
around.
someplace.
Yes.
So get the real ID. And that is, I got mine, and it looks as fake as it can be. I'm telling you, I took it out of the envelope, and I'm like, this doesn't even look real. If I had seen this before, I would have been like, this is fake.
Not real.
It's not real.
See, I told you she's like an encyclopedia. I got to get me a real ID.
Get a real ID.
So listen, Ellen, we have about 2 minutes left.
Ah, so fast.
I know. It's like 5 minutes, so I'm going to give you the last 2 minutes if we're going to talk about NCNW.
Oh, we're going to talk about
the last word to our audience.
The last word to our audience, yes. Vanita and I are both NCNW sisters, and it is really one of the best organizations that anybody can have on a local. I see a finger going up.
That's one minute left.
Okay. So its mission is to lead, empower, and advocate for women of African descent, their families, and their communities. And that is what we're doing here today, advocating for you by having this show. Thank you so much for letting me come on and talk about why it's so important to vote and give a little plug.
Absolutely. And come back anytime and we can talk about NCNW the entire 5 minutes. It seems like 5 minutes, doesn't it?
Does.
But it's 28 minutes. So thank you so much for sharing all of that knowledge and wisdom with us. Just go out and vote, everybody. I don't care who you vote for, but make your voice heard.
Absolutely. Election Day is November 2nd.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is the David Goodman Reality and Truth Show, and we're on your side.